All right, welcome to WeWork and welcome to the Fire Labs projects in FinTech innovation. I'm Johan Landin. I'm a local representative of Fire Labs here in Stockholm. I've known them for many years. We worked on many projects together, so I'm excited to have them here in Stockholm to talk a little bit more about FinTech and blockchain technology. I also want to say a huge thanks to WeWork and the WeWork crew that are hosting us today and making us all comfortable.
Applause.
So with that said, I'm going to turn over the mic to Helen from Fire Labs. Came here from Kiev yesterday, and you'll take it from here. From Turkey, sorry.
Yeah, probably see from my skin. We're very pleased seeing you here. And let me present like our topic of Meetup. It's like innovation in FinTech. We are going to talk about. Okay, we are going to talk about blockchain because we are delivering lots of interesting projects here in Sweden. Also, we're working with lots of FinTech companies from Denmark, and going to talk about real values that it could bring for FinTech companies. Also, the next speaker will be Jordan. He's CTO at Chromaway Blockchain. Chromaway Blockchain right now is like top product blockchain company here in Sweden. And Jordan, he will be presenting like our projects that we launched this year. So it's very pity because Cecilia from Stockholm Digital Finance, she couldn't join us. But yeah, it's in production. We are very pleased. This project related to green bonds, and we will present this use case, how blockchain could bring transparency for investors in green bonds, issuers, of green bonds, and validators, because all of them, they will be connected in our system. The third speaker also will be Richards. He's our close partner talking about regulations, because it has definitely a very big impact on legal side, using data science, using blockchain technology. And the last one will be speaker Stas. He's our product owner, and he's conducting design sprints. And it's interesting approach how to validate your ideas in FinTech. And why it's getting so popular among banks, because we are right now also collaborating with banks, and it's not so time consuming. It's like very cheap way how to validate and launch innovative projects. Okay, so probably the first speaker, our Kirikov, he is CTO of all our FinTech projects that we are delivering here in Sweden. And we'll be talking about real value blockchain.
Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Kiril, and I was the CTO, now just a partner at Fire Labs. I have 10 years of experience in application, software development, and for last several years, about 3 years, I'm working in the blockchain field and developing the project for the Web 3.0. So, as our meetup is connected with the innovation in FinTech, I think that the good idea will be to speak about the decentralized finance because it is like the most innovative thing in the blockchain, I think, and have the most connection with the real users right now. So, agenda is small because not enough of time we have, so to open the question really well. So I want to discuss what is DeFi, how we can compare DeFi with the current traditional financial system, where we now in the DeFi, and is it worth to use it in your projects, or maybe is it worth to use to build projects in this field? So, what is DeFi? DeFi is essentially just conventional financial tools built over the decentralized public ledger, specifically Ethereum and probably Bitcoin, but I will talk mostly about the Ethereum. So they are mostly predicted and open source protocols or modular frameworks for creating and issuing digital assets. So by definition, DeFi is a finance, and it is in the mass of in the people who like doing projects in DeFi. They treat it like the alternative to the current financial system. So, like, I want also to discuss how we can compare DeFi to traditional financial system. So, the traditional financial system has several like disadvantages. Of course, you can like not agree with that. It's like how these disadvantages are discussed mainly in the blockchain field. So the traditional financial system can be sometimes like inaccessible because financial services are exclusionary based on arbitrary criteria like jurisdictions and investor accreditation, and sometimes it's inaccessible from a lot of countries that have autocratic regimes or just were regulated. It can be inefficient because of a lot of intermediaries, clearing houses, human intermediaries, which are costly in terms of time and money. And it is opaque. So financial services are opaque, and it can result in surprising over-leveraging or too big to fail systematic risks. So how we can make it better with decentralized finance? So decentralized finance is accessible like right now because it is based on the public distributed ledger networks, and it means that everybody with an internet connection or smartphone can have access to the financial services provided by this network. So you don't need any documents, you don't need any, there is no any government regulations, at least right now. It doesn't matter the distance to the functioning economies. So right now you can send Ether or Bitcoin to anybody in the world, and just in minutes. So it gives us, that's why it gives us affordable cross-border payments by removing costly intermediaries. Like, there is no SWIFT, there is no bank, so you just can send some value to somebody and it will just settle in somebody's wallet in another country. And doesn't matter who you send funds to. For example, DeFi can decrease the percent of the fee, the percentage of fee for each transaction from average percentage in the current financial system from 7% to 3%. And of course it gives us improved privacy and security because users have full access to full custodial of their wealth and can transact securely without validation and central party. From the development perspective, from the perspective of building products in this field, DeFi keys interoperability. And here written two cases. I just can discuss the second one, which I had in my experience. So we developed a casino based on the blockchain, and for example, every casino has a jackpot fund, which is waiting until somebody wins it, and it is just money that are stored in some wallet, and they doesn't work. So it is possible with the current services in the decentralized finance field just to put this money, store it in the deposit, and when somebody some player wins this money, just in one transaction, they will be removed from the deposit and sent to the winner. Just in one transaction. It's impossible just to do this in the current financial system. So, I love this phrase from Brandon Foster. He's the CEO of Dharma. Dharma is P2P lending protocol based on the Ethereum blockchain. So he said that whereas Wall Street provides financial services, well, the ultimate settlement layer is courts and legal proceedings. DeFi provides financial services where the ultimate settlement layer is court. So let's discuss what that. So the zero layer of DeFi, it is of course a blockchain. It is, I should say that it is always public blockchain, like Ethereum or Bitcoin. And public blockchains has lots of 6 advantages over the private blockchains or private networks that are used in the current financial system, like banks. So it is permissionless. So anyone in the world can connect to this network. So it means that it's accessible. And it's decentralized. It means that records are kept simultaneously across thousands of computers. It gives us safety of data. It's trustless. A central party isn't required to ensure that the transactions are valid because of the blockchain nature. It's transparent, and so it means that you shouldn't be like Michael Burry now. You just can use Etherscan to see how many amount of funds available in the collateral of lending platforms or stablecoins. It's censorship resistant, so there is no central party that can invalidate users' transactions or stop or get your funds, block your funds, and it's programmable. So Ethereum's biggest innovation was the incorporation of Ethereum virtual machine, or virtual machine. It is how Ethereum blockchain processes computations natively in the blockchain. In other words, it allows Ethereum to run software that processes digital assets just in your transactions. This is where term of programmable money came from. So just some picture of how it works for people who don't know, not connected with the blockchain. It is just blockchain is some big amount of nodes who are working on the same shared protocol. It means that you cannot make an operation that is not allowed by the protocol. It means that no transactions can be invalidated, nothing can be removed from the blockchain, and it means that you should trust this network and that your funds are safe. So layer 1, which is built over the blockchain, it is dApps or decentralized applications. So the global financial system created massive wealth, but centralized nature means that the spoils have gone to the populations who are properly connected to the financial centers of the world, and we can change this. DeFi opens access for creators and for consumers to the financial instruments all over the world. And right now we have a lot of projects in this field that are already started scratch the surface by creating the analogs of existing financial instruments. So a bit overview of them. So the layer 1 are stable coins. Because of very big volatility of the cryptocurrencies, a lot of stable coins were invented, and now you can invest. You can change your cryptocurrencies to some stable coins who are based on or pegged with dollars, used dollars, euros, or even gold. like stablecoins primarily fall into three categories. It is crypto-collateralized, or fiat-collateralized, or non-collateralized. There are already exchange and open marketplaces. I will speak here mostly about decentralized exchanges, to speak about decentralized finance. So, of course, they suffer from a lot of issues, like mass adoption is very bad, and they are really slow, and there are a lot of technical issues that should be resolved. But anyway, exchanges, decentralized exchanges can, I think they should replace the centralized exchanges because they give better transparency, they're better regulated, can be better regulated because of open source nature, and you can trust them because they are really transparent, they're based on the smart contracts. There are open lending protocols, which are like the top projects in the decentralized finance field for this year. It is like Dharma or Maker or Compound Finance, where you can put your money to deposit, for example, and earn some interest. They have achieved more recent attention than any other categories in decentralized finance field of Ethereum. They can offer you many different advantages over traditional credit structures, like integration with digital assets like lending, borrowing, collateralization of different digital assets. There are no credit checks at least right now because they are only over collateralized lending platforms, but in future I think there will be non-collateralized. So the example of such platforms, Compound and Dharma, which are rather successful right now. Not comparison with traditional finance, but at least. And there are some decentralized prediction markets, like Buzzword or insurance platform, where you can ensure that your smart contract failed, for example, if some bad developers wrote them. I don't know, maybe you can write your own app, which is rather simple because you don't have to get some licenses or approvals from banks. You just can write as a standard application, and it will start process crypto assets, or maybe just not crypto, other assets. So where we are now in decentralized finance. So the current phase of decentralized finance can be treated like Hello World, just like a Hello World program. But already lending, for example, for last 30 days, they were like about $30 million originated in lendings in Maker, Dharma, and Compound. About $35 billion volume was in decentralized exchanges, which is rather small amounts in comparison with current financial system. But if we treat this as a hello world, then it can be rather good. So who supports DeFi? And yeah, like proponents of DeFi expose utopian visions of future without the fees and frictions the current financial service industry. But a lot of investors from a lot of venture funds support them. Like for example, Fred Wilson from Union Square Ventures, they invested in Duolingo, MongoDB, a lot of very successful startups. They also invested in several products, several decentralized finance startups. For example, maybe Facebook too did a step forward to the decentralization of finance by creation of Libra. But it all can sound good, but we have a lot of issues in this field right now. A a lot of limitations that should be addressed in the future. Like there is still low adoption, the economics are shaky, the networks are too slow, nobody's sure how to use it, unclear processes for mass adopters, and right now it stops from the mass adoption of decentralized finance. Is it worth to use DeFi in your product or like use it as a user? So for all DeFi shortcomings, it would be premature to write it off completely. The notion of leveraging your wealth without touching heads of third parties was never possible, but it's now quickly becoming available to anyone that have access to internet and small amount of cryptocurrency. So a lot of people right now think that decentralized finance can replace the current financial industry. I'm not so sure. I think that in the nearest future they will collaborate with them. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm an independent consultant. Big corporations like banks, they default and go bankrupt, and then countries fail. But still, I like my paycheck to go to a bank in a currency that I know of, because the banks always say that, well, we live off trust. If you don't trust us, you will not deposit our money here. So a word about the trust in the blockchain systems. I mean, who would want to have their paycheck in Ethereum, for example? What about the trust issue?
I'm getting an internal server error, and I don't know why. I guess I can check that.
Yeah, so I think that it's why I said that I think that we won't close all banks, and I think that people who wants to own their wealth without trust and without need to trust anybody, they are okay with using the decentralized financing. But people who don't worry, they can just go to bank. If it was a question.
Yeah, don't have any questions. Okay,
Just one remark regarding this. I think that in some countries you are not allowed to get to bank for some reason. For example, if you live in one country, you cannot have a credit card in another country, just because you don't have documents. And in that case, like you have no way how to. For example, if I live in most time in Germany and part time in Ukraine, I cannot get a card in Ukrainian bank, but I want to have to get agreements on this card. I just cannot do this. Here I have. It doesn't matter where I live. I just can have cryptocurrency without connection to our country. So I think that that much.
I got this money through Russia.
Right. So on the topic of decentralized finance, there's centralized versions coming out, like the central government of China is making a cryptocurrency, and that's not decentralized. There is blockchain, and Libra, one can argue, is decentralized, but some can argue not. How do you see on this decentralized vision becoming centralized?
I think that we have some compromise in the future, just to have mass adoption of that, because in fact, lots of 90% of people doesn't care if it is how it's centralized or decentralized. It just should do its work, and that's why lots of people can treat Libra as a first step to mass adoption. But I prefer decentralized networks like Ethereum, because I think I know a lot how it works, and that's why I can trust it. but I cannot trust Libra because from my point of view, it is the same thing like to trust bank. Maybe it's not failed. Maybe it failed. I don't know. So it doesn't change anything. So I think that we will have both. And for example, China, they are running NEM, as far as I don't know, their blockchain. In fact, it is public blockchain. It's decentralized because everybody can access to it. But the team who developing this blockchain and how features will start become available in the new version, it is a only centralized decision. And because it's made only by the team who developed the blockchain. In Ethereum, for example, or in Dash, or in Bitcoin, everybody can participate in the governance process. And that's why it is more complicated to develop these networks, because you need to have consensus of lots of things in the big, very, very big community. And maybe, you need to, maybe you can think that it can stop this network from developing. But how history showed for the last several years, Ethereum developing very fast. And even with the decentralized process. So that's why maybe good will win. And we will not have centralized blockchains in the future.